Hello YouTube and fellow Star Wars collectors! On this episode of Toys Are the Way, we'll be taking a look at the latest addition to our vintage collection shelf displays, the Blurrg and Mandalorian. Additionally, we'll be setting it up for some action figure photography. If you're new to the channel or a fan of Star Wars collecting, be sure to smash a like on this video, remember to subscribe, ring that bell for notifications, or even become a channel member. Welcome back, gang. You might be thinking, dang, Toys Are the Way, that is a lot of Blurrgs, and that's most certainly because it is a lot of Blurrgs. I have a total of 3 of these open and another one back there that's sealed, and I have a few more pre-orders that are on the way. I am just very, very excited and absolutely enchanted to finally add this one to my vintage collection shelf displays. The Blurrg was heavily demanded by a lot of fans, and sure, it would have been great to see this during Season 1, but The Mandalorian kind of swept people off their feet. We didn't know what to expect, and I personally think we should have seen this creature around Season 2, definitely when we were starting to see like the Razor Crest become a possibility for us, and even, midway through Season 3. This would have been a great one to see pipelined, but it took a little bit more effort and noise on our part to get this one added to the collection, but regardless, very happy to have it. If you're a fan of certain properties like the Ewok Adventures, then you're very familiar with the Blurrg. They were also in animated series like the Clone Wars. We saw Clone Troopers using these on Ryloth. You then saw them also during some seasons of Rebels, so definitely one of those creatures that I want to have a number of for my collection displays. But with all that said and done, let's take a closer look at this new vintage collection creature. Taking a look at our vintage style packaging, we have the same exact box that was seen with the Return of the Jedi and Mandalorian Remnant Speeder, which hark back to the original Kenner release of that Imperial Speeder. We have the Star Wars and Mandalorian logo nicely displayed up top, followed by the Blurrg and Mandalorian. And we have a nice toy photography image recreating one of those scenes from Season 1 of the show. Additionally, we have a nice, bold, large image showing off the creature and figure that are included in this set, looking pretty good on Arvada 7 with the Kenner logo down in the bottom left corner. Additionally, we have that classic callout showing you that there is a carded figure included in this set. Taking a look at the top of the box, we have additional toy photography images showing off the creature and figure that are included in this set. And on the bottom, we have another image that shows you everything that's included in this packaging. Additionally, on the sides of the box, we have a couple more toy photography images just showing off this world-building piece. Taking a look at the back of the packaging, we have the same exact image that's seen on the front of the box, except this time with the Star Wars, Mandalorian, and Vintage Collection logos nicely placed on that race track. Additionally, we have that same image from the bottom of the box, which shows you everything that's included in this set. Taking a look at the interior contents of the box, we have a standard cardboard tray that slides out and has all the pieces of the Blurrg nicely tucked away. We have parts of the Blurrg, such as one of its arm and the reins, nicely kept in a plastic bag, and you can see that the 2 legs have been taken off and kept in this cardboard tray. Additionally, Din Djarin is nicely secured and has no real damage to it, so that's always good to see, but I would have liked to see a little bit of tissue paper also included just to keep an extra layer of protection. Due to the design of the packaging, some assembly is required. You will simply need to take the Blurrg leg and pop it onto the ball joint in order to complete your creature. Additionally, you will need to take that separate arm and also plug it into the socket, which is not too difficult, and all the pieces do assemble quite easily in my opinion. And then lastly, you will need to take the reins and simply put it around the Blurrg's mouth. And taking a look at this creature out of the packaging, I have just got to say, bravo Hasbro, you have really delivered quite a creature to the vintage collection here. Certainly, it was a long wait, but I think it was really worth it. Look at the level of sculpting and detail we got going on here. Great stuff on the skin, just bringing it to life, and I really like this paint application that was added to kind of highlight all these nice features on the Blurrg. Really great stuff. In terms of articulation, we got some great stuff going on here as well. Of course, we had to assemble this, so we had that ball joint at the hip, which, we're a little familiar with, and it's pretty nice to see that. You can get a little bit more articulation out of him for some dynamic running, so that's really great. We do have a joint at the knee, a hinge that is able to rotate and pretty much get at 90-degree angle, so that is also really nice to see. And then, of course, we got ankle articulation. We got that rocker down here, which will just add to a little bit more, fluidity in the movements of this critter. And then we have the arms, which are pretty good. I will say, he's got the ball joint at the shoulder, which is nice to see. He does not have any articulation at the elbow, which is a little bit of a bummer because, this is not a small joint. Definitely probably could have added some articulation there. I'm not sure if this was something to help keep the cost down, but feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Would you prefer to pay a little bit more to see all the articulation, or are you okay with this? Personally, I think they've done a decent job here. You can get some great just like gestures out of this critter and, really capture what we saw in The Mandalorian. And then moving on, we have the jaw, which is nicely articulated. It's got some great range of motion to it. And yeah, taking a look at the inside of his mouth, great sculpting there. Just look at all those taste buds on his tongue that kind of like shine in the light. Really good stuff there. The roof of his mouth has some great sculpting as well. And then the teeth have just been done nicely. So really good stuff there. As well as this paint application on his lip. It's not too heavy. Just like really brings this critter to life. And then lastly, the eyes. Take a look at those eyes. Really, really nice stuff there. They've added like a nice gloss coat to them to really bring that shine out. And I just love the color that they did there. And then taking a look at his pupil, just like, yeah, really nice detail there. Absolutely love it. The underside of the Blurrg has a very, very nice like paint application to it that kind of fades to his main color, so that looks really nice as well. And then the tail, we've got some articulation there. It's made of a softer plastic. It's not really like Hammond collection where, this is a wire in there that you could bend, but I think it does everything that we need it to do for the Blurrg. So really great stuff there. Moving on to the saddle, it's got some no paint applications really, but it's got some really nice detail to it. Of course, if you want to add, a little weathering to this or something, you can totally do that. But the main paint applications on his saddle and reins are on this little like ring here, where it's got a nice silver paint application to it. Very clean, but yeah, all of this is made of like soft plastic, so you're able to interact with it pretty well. And of course, you can take all of this stuff off, which is cool. So you just simply do that. And then there's a little peg down here, which you unclip, and it also pegs into the underside of the Blurrg, and you could simply remove that, and then have a wild Blurrg, which can attack Din as soon as he lands on Arvada 7. So I really like, they considered that to, get us multiple like scenes out of this release. So really cool stuff there, Hasbro, and I think you've done a remarkable job on this creature. Great stuff. Keep bringing on the creatures for the vintage collection. Taking a look at our vintage style packaging for the included figure, we have the Star Wars and Mandalorian logo prominently displayed up top, followed by the Mandalorian Arvada 7 on an orange name pill color. Additionally, this is an unpunched card, which is always kind of nice to see. Moving on, we have a fantastic image of Din Djarin riding the Blurrg on Arvada 7, looking really good with that Kenner logo down below. And additionally, we have this nice figure here that's popping really good against that orange name pill color. On the back, he is VC 335 in the line, the Mandalorian Arvada 7, and we have a small description about the character, followed by the Vintage Collection logo and additional images of the card and figure. So I'm always up for adding more figures to my Mandalorian carded display, and also seeing this version of the Mandalorian added to our displays. There are a few upgrades here, like the new style barbell hips and the updated pauldron, which are great to see, but the lack of rocker ankles is definitely a bit of a bummer. But I do have a quick fix for that, which I will share with all of you moving on in this video. Taking a look at Din Djarin out of the packaging, he is definitely a very nice upgrade to see for our collections. He now has the updated pauldron here that's made of nice Beskar, as well as updated paint applications on his helmet because, he did have those kind of cleaned up by the time he went to Arvada 7. So really good stuff there. I will say that he is kind of lacking in the paint apps department. Now, his armor is definitely a much more representative color of what it should be. The first version that we got was a little bit more saturated, but I think this looks great. The only thing is they didn't put any of that silver paint application on any of these scuffs and stuff like that to like really weather his armor, and I think that's a bit of a shame. I might have to put some of those on myself because he just looks a little too clean in my opinion. But the main upgrade we got going on here is the new style hips, which is just delightful to have. It makes posing our figures much more enjoyable, and they're just, a better point of articulation to see. He's also got all the stuff we saw before, swivel at the thigh, he's got the joint at the knee that gives pretty good range of motion. Unfortunately, he does not have rocker ankles. Now, Hasbro did state, I guess recently, that, not including the rocker ankles helped this figure, keep the cost down. But I do have a fix for that, and maybe Hasbro was unaware of this solution, but we'll get onto that later. Other than that, he's got good range of motion here with that Beskar armor. It's the same thing that we've been seeing before with different versions of this figure. And of course, he's got a newer cape. So the first version of this character came with that plastic cape, which is just awful. And then we saw, soft goods capes for other versions of Din Djarin with the Razor Crest and so on and so on. But now we're getting it with this version of him from Season 1. And this one's actually a cleaner cape, which is pretty accurate to what you saw when he got to Arvada 7. It wasn't all banged up, I believe. So no tears in it or anything like that. Really good material. And yeah, just fantastic stuff going on here. Taking a look at Din compared to the previous release, you can see that saturation has been taken down on his armor, and I do think that looks much better. But of course, the lack of silver paint applications on all the battle damage and weathering doesn't look as great in my opinion. And then if we take a look at the back of the figure, pretty much the same here, except you don't have that soft plastic cape anymore. But I will say that the paint applications on my pulse rifle for the new figure have a bit of a glossy, like dark gray added to it, and I don't think that looks very good. It kind of takes away some of the detail on that rifle, and yeah, I think the first release looks much better in my opinion. And just overall, there's just a lot less saturation going on here. But I do like the inclusion of the updated pauldron, and I think the helmet looks fantastic. The paint applications there are really, really good. So a nice variant of this version of Din Djarin to be added to our collection. For a simple rocker ankle swap, we will be using a spare Mines of Mandalore Din Djarin and some boiling hot water. Pour it into a disposable plastic container. Note that you'll want to use a separate container due to the plastic chemicals released when action figures are boiled. You would not want to contaminate a kitchen item you plan to use in the future. The hot water will soften the plastic, making it malleable and allowing for easy disassembly. Simply apply some force and pull the lower legs off the two figures. Fortunately, the peg on the Mandalorian is located on the upper thigh, which will luckily not require any kind of painting or matching. Simply pop the new legs with the rocker ankles onto the Blurrg Mando release, and you're ready to take on some Jawas or Niktos on Arvada 7. Lastly, if you feel some type of way about tearing apart an action figure, you can put the non-rocker ankle legs on the Mines of Mandalore release and still display that figure in your collection or N1 Starfighter. Here you can see my Din Djarin upgrade with the rocker ankles looking absolutely superb with the rifle in sniper position and just a perfect stance that really sells that kind of posing for this action figure. While the Hasbro version on the left hand side without the rocker ankles looks pretty good, it just has to be said that rocker ankles are a must. Just like angling the feet to be, flat on the ground just looks much more convincing in my opinion. And fortunately, we have the tooling to make this happen. So if you're looking to upgrade this version of the Mandalorian for your collection, all you gotta do is a simple boil, pop, and swap. Nothing more to it. And taking one final look at the evolution of this character for my collection, you have the original release of Din Djarin as the Mandalorian with the plastic cape, looking pretty decent, and then we have the new version of the Blurrg, and then the version of the Blurrg with my upgrade for rocker ankles, and then on the far end we have that original version of the Mandalorian, which you can see that I've swapped out his legs as well with spares that I have from a bunch of different Maldo crease sets, because I bought multiples of those, and it's the same exact tooling with the rocker ankles, although it does have the snowy effect, and the Beskar shin armor is silver. But I plan to paint that and match everything, which I've done actually with another version of the Mandalorian in my collection, so I've got spare parts to upgrade this very first version, which I plan to do. But if you're not, comfortable painting or doing anything like that, you can absolutely just take the ones from the Mines of Mandalore release and you will have yourself an upgraded figure. It's a huge relief to finally have the Blurrg added to the vintage collection. I have spoken. This piranha tadpole-like critter was an absolute essential world-building element for our Mandalorian Season 1 and Razor Crest displays. While Season 1 seems like a galaxy far, far away now, the pure excitement that this creature brings to my collection makes it feel like it was just yesterday. The Blurrg comes fully loaded with 12 points of articulation, most notably the ball-jointed hips and rocker ankles, both of which allow for some phenomenal sprinting and poses that allow fans to recreate a number of scenes from the Mandalorian series. Additionally, many of us can now pair this all new from the ground up 375 creature with pre-existing figures in our collection and truly complete some world building scenes on our shelf displays. Although it has to be noted that Season 1 Greef Karga is still a huge gap to fill in our collections. The Blurrg certainly packs a lot of punch, and the updated Mandalorian figure is another strong upgrade for TVC fans. The updated barbell hips, Beskar pauldron, helmet, and softgoods cape are a delightful sight to my eyes, but it has to be said that failing to use the pre-existing rocker ankle tooling on this release was a huge miss for this figure. Regardless, I'm happy to add this one to the collection, but let's set up this version of Din Djarin and the Blurrg in some action figure photography. I hope you've enjoyed this video and taking a look at this latest addition to our vintage collection shelf displays, the Blurrg and Mandalorian from Season 1 of The Mandalorian. Feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And don't forget to smash a like on this video and subscribe if you're new to the channel. It really helps and is always greatly appreciated. Thanks everyone, and may the Force be with you.